Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Anamika Sharma from Incubating, and I welcome you all to day two of the two-day bootcamp on Spark AI Labs. Spark AI Labs is an initiative by Facebook to enhance the skills of Spark AI creators by providing hands-on training and workshop over a couple of months, helping them implement those skills in the real-time AR Effect Hackathon Challenge. In the course of two-day workshop, we will learn about the importance of AR technology in today's world, its uses, and career opportunities in the field. Further, we will also learn how to develop AR effects on Spark AR and create 2D and 3D models on AR effects. So, without wasting much time, I would like to now invite Mohammad Faiz Ali, co founder for Lunches, for today's session on how AR will change the future of communication. Welcome, Faiz.
Thank you very much, Anamika. This is fantastic. I had a good fortune of being on this yesterday. I loved Hadi's session. I think the bootcamp that followed after that, Tanisha and others did a fantastic job. I'm just really excited. We love the space, so we love talking about it. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. So over to you. I'll leave to you to talk about how do you see AR changing the face of communication? How do you think it is impacting everyone? And what can we as an individual do? Can an individual learn like we had these questions yesterday? I'm sure you must have seen those questions where people
Yes, yes.
talking about beginner level and all. So we would love to hear it from you. Over to you.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm mildly worried about the questions, just the avalanche of questions that showed up. Like at the end of the session, I was like, okay, how many questions are there? But that obviously shows the excitement that's there in the crowd. So that's wonderful. So again, thank you so much. Let me start off by thanking Incubate and Facebook indeed for putting Spark together and putting workshops like these together. Just want to make sure this is an occupational hazard. I'm hoping that I am loud and clear and the video is fine, but you know how it is, completely dependent. Anamika and I were talking about it just before the session started. We're completely dependent on technology to sort of communicate with each other these days. So that's probably sort of a decent segue to get into this topic. I'll just take very little time to sort of introduce myself to everybody that's watching. My name is Faiz. I've been in the creative tech, marketing tech, ad tech sort of a domain for about 8 years now. And I've had a great time, a great fortune of working with a lot of brands across regions, spending a lot of time with a lot of workplaces. And now I'm currently the co-founder at Four Lunches, which is basically a creative tech studio, which does exactly this, which does the kind of stuff that Incubate here is doing, which is kind of sitting in the middle of creative and tech and sort of keeping an eye on the culture of tech and the tech of culture. So sort of we are the watchdogs that sit and sort of look at what's trending, what's not. We are a studio, so we produce a lot of tech. We develop a lot of things. And one of the things that we're completely focused on is definitely augmented reality. And that's something that's honestly, if I were to sort of segment my briefs, 8 out of 10 briefs that I get from brands to come to me and say we want to communicate with our end users is basically on augmented reality. And again, 9 out of 10 on those are on Spark. They're on Instagram because of the massive presence of Instagram and the community that Instagram's created with Spark. So that's a super relevant topic for us, and I'd love to talk about it. Without wasting any more time, in the interest of time, rather, I'd like to actually start off with the presentation. I'll just start sharing my screen. Right. So I'm hoping that you're all able to see my screen. And here's the topic. You guys are aware of the topic. We're going to be talking about how AR will change the future of communication. In fact, I was, when Ojasvi and Askar mentioned this topic, I was drawn in straight away because, 3 years ago, this topic could possibly have been, will AR change the future of communication? And in these 3 years, what we've done as a community is basically the question mark on whether or not AR is going to change is out of the way right now. And now we're talking about how AR is going to change the future of communication. Excited to talk about it. What we're gonna do here, we've basically divided the talk in 3 parts. The first part is going to talk about the evolution of tech. evolution of technology generally, right? Because one of the big things that people always talk about when we talk about innovation, and particularly about emerging technologies, is this a fad? Is this going to stay? Is this going to go away? And all of you guys listening obviously are weighing your career opportunities, talking about, is this the wave that I should get into? And for that, we have actually broken the talk into some kind of economic models and tech models and business models that categorically prove that this wave is not really a wave, it's here to stay, and this is in fact the natural evolution of communication, natural evolution. So it's going to be right here. So we're going to talk about that, and I'll just very quickly take you through the way in which we're going to do it. Obviously, I think a lot of stories come up, right, when the internet has been around for so many decades, and social media has been around for a good 15 years now. A lot of stories come up. So we're going to basically talk about these things by virtue of stories, and obviously the models that I was talking about, the Pine and Gilmore's model, to understand what communication is and what experience economy is, and that's the core of this entire chat. And then we're going to talk about the technology acceptance, and therefore talk about how Spark is invariably playing a very big role, and how AR in the larger picture is going to play a very big role in terms of communication. And then we're going to talk about instances, illustrations, the project that we've had the good fortune to be a part of, and some of the projects that have come across the world that have solidified the stance of augmented reality, particularly in the space of communication, right? And then we're going to see how we're going to conclude it. Right. So here's what we're going to first start with, right? So whenever we talk about technology, there are two ways, there are two kinds of technologies that exist, right? Now, the first piece of technology is the technology that has sprung forth by virtue of inspirational epiphanies, and this is basically trying to further and broaden our horizons in terms of what we can understand. Now, this could be anything. It could be technology related to mining, or it could be technology related to cryptocurrency, which is also data, like basically mining of a different kind. So, or there could be technology that understands rock formations, right, or the change in atmosphere. Every technology starts off by basically being path breaking, right? But not all technologies basically become mainstream. And what it takes for a technology to become mainstream is how functional it can get in terms of solving the problems for the end user, which is basically the 6-7 billion people in the world. So every technology will start with step one, but not every technology will make it mainstream. Not every technology will become culture. Not every technology therefore becomes highly marketable, right? Not every technology is backed by the tech giants at all points in time. AR, interestingly, actually fits into both the bills, right? And we'll talk about how. Like I mentioned, every technology starts off as type 1, but not every technology makes it to type 2. So what goes into every technology, any technology becoming type 2? Who decides it? And who says it stays at 1 or 2? So we're going to talk about the experience economy over here, right? And this is basically the authority that decides on what stays and what doesn't stay. There were two economists and people who understand business by names Pine and Gilmore, and we're going to be talking about that model. And the quick look that we're going to have on is on the experience economy, and how this is very critical in terms of the type 1 graduating to type 2 sort of a phase, right? To oversimplify it, experience economy talks about how much you can customize the experience for the end user. It basically talks about what kind of communication you're going to build and what kind of tech, in fact, you're going to build that the end user is going to accept and basically make it part of life. And to put it in simpler terms, what we're talking about is how do we create a habit out of a new technology being accepted by the end user. And to that, there are 4 elements. We'll talk about it in greater detail in a bit, but it basically has to tick several boxes, and by these boxes we mean it has to have an entertainment value, it has to have an educational value, it has to have an aesthetic value, and it has to provide some degree of escapism, right? And this is generally the rock bottom test to sort of see what's going to stay, what's not going to stay, and what incites active participation or passive participation, what decides immersion, and how the end user is going to consume technology and absorb it, right? Let me give you an example, right? This slide, you'll notice it doesn't have any imagery, it doesn't have anything, because I think this is a good time to sort of start talking about how you and I have consumed and accepted technology through the experience economy model, and we are not even aware of it. Right now, let me start talking about the probably 1999 2000. Right, internet existed before that as well, but something amazing happened in 1999 2000. Right, companies like Google started coming up, and then we had YouTube, which Google also bought early in the 2000s. When internet existed, what we were talking about was the end user basically passively consuming internet without any great control that is attributed to the user in terms of user defining what experience he or she want to consume. When Google appeared, right, the end user was able to search. The end user was able to control and make that experience about himself. If I were to sort of talk about experience economy in one word, I would call it hyper personalization, right? And I would basically say, if you're going to make something hyper personal to me, I will feel that you've been more empathetic about me, and I will accept that experience and I will engage with it. And the more I engage with it, the more it is going to become a habit for me. And Google basically did that for the internet. For the first time, the end user was able to search for whatever he or she wanted to search for. Right. And then YouTube happened, and then suddenly there's like a massive, gigantic library of videos, and I am able to pick my content as opposed to traditional satellite TV or radio, right? And this has been the evolution, right? And then we were talking about social media that allowed us to sort of control our digital presence and sort of do what we want to do with it. And that is again a hyper personalized, and all the algorithms kick in, hyper personalized experience for us, right? Let me tell you, probably more examples to this end would probably be, Amazon, right? When e-commerce appeared, right, suddenly I was able to search for what I wanted to search for, and the technology was basically using algorithms to make my stay within that e-commerce storefront more personal to me. And that's what product recommendations did, right? And to the end, that today on OTT platforms like Netflix or Amazon Prime, or even Spotify, right, and YouTube Music, we are talking about people controlling what they want to consume. The more control you give to people, and the more personal and about that person you're going to make a communication piece, that is what gets retained. And the technology that enables this is the thing that ends up becoming a vital part of everybody's life, right? So that's the bottom line of experience economy. We'll go into more detail. Some instances over here we've already discussed this. We're talking about Google, which is obviously the very definition of how we gave users the end users the power to sort of search and control what part of internet they want to consume. When it came to entertainment, Netflix did exactly that. When it came to e-commerce, Amazon did exactly that. You'll notice that I've put the logo of Instagram, and I have actually written AR. Now, AR is not exclusive to Instagram, but in the from the industry that we are in, we have very good reason to believe, like I mentioned at the beginning of this call also, Instagram is definitely driving the acceptance wave. It's definitely setting very, very big checkpoints and milestones in terms of AR becoming mainstream. And in while we go forward in the talk, we're going to talk about how augmented reality is technically the pinnacle of personal experience on internet today. But it doesn't get more personal than that, and it doesn't get more entertaining than that. Having said that, now let's come back to the Pine and Gilmore experience model, right? And this is what we'll talk about that in the next slide, which is very similar. So Pine and Gilmore experience model, which is something that most communication professionals unanimously agree on, is a model that has done a lot of research into what it is that people remember about an experience. Right now, why is experience economy? And the just to sort of quickly revise, because we're going to be talking about a lot of things. Step number one, we spoke about not all technologies become type 2, right? And what goes into a technology becoming type 2 is that it has to generate an experience. Basically, it has to confirm to experience economy, right? Now, what goes into an experience, and again, experience economy is hyper personalized content that you're going to serve by virtue of your communication and the tech that enables it, right? And what is an experience that I'm going to have? I'll give you a very simple example of Starbucks, right? Technically, it's coffee beans, right? But the experience of Starbucks is something different altogether, right? And that's what we are talking about as communication as custodians of communication for brands today, right? We're saying we're not selling Netflix, we're selling Netflix and chill, right? We're not selling Starbucks, we're selling hanging out with your friends or having a private time, taking a laptop and getting a lot of work done. We're not selling coffee day, we're selling conversations, right? We're not selling IPL, we are celebrating a carnival of everybody in India having, for the first time, agreeing on the same content piece to watch on the big screen, on television, on your phones, laptops. So that's the crux of experience economy, right? And how much do you make it about the end user? Now, how and when will the end user decide that this is for me? How and when will the end user say, this is a great experience, I want to consume it again? This model says that it has to have these four elements. Number one, it has to have an element of entertainment. That's just something that human beings are drawn towards. We are visual creatures, we are creatures of experience. If I were to, a lot of you might be students, a lot of you might be professionals. If I were to talk to you about your board examination results, you may or may not remember the exact score that you had in your 10th standard science or social sciences or mathematics. But what you remember is the experience of taking that exam. You don't remember the exact questions that came up in your mathematics exam paper. What you do remember is the stress, the tension, the nervous anxiety, all of that stuff, and the relief that came after your results were announced. So technically, we are people who consume experiences. In a way, life is also basically like all of the experiences joined together. So that's why experiences become vital. And for a human being to say, what, this is a great experience, I want to consume it, there has to be an element of entertainment. Does AR have it? Of course it does. We're going to talk about it more in detail going forward. So entertainment is a vital part of it. A human being has an unending urge to learn, right? For two reasons. One is they have a nascent drive towards learning more things. They want to learn more today. They want to know more today than they did yesterday, and they want to know more tomorrow than they did today. So education becomes a vital part. The other part, as to why human beings are drawn to education, is because it is also social currency, in terms of when a human being says that, I know something that somebody does not, it's great social currency for that person. So education is a vital part of what the human brain is going for. So if an experience is going to have an element of education in it, it is going to stick to that person. That's the vital truth. The third part is aesthetics. I briefly mentioned that human beings are really, really drawn to visually attractive pieces, right? And that's why we love sceneries. That's why we love getaways. That's why we love good-looking cinema, right? Aesthetics is something that makes something very memorable. Augmented reality is actually probably the closest tech that we have, apart from virtual reality and mixed reality, which are all relatives of each other, which add a lot of aesthetic beauty to some kind of communication that is consumed, to any kind of consumption. So aesthetics is a vital part again. Escapism, right? Why we consume so much of content is because there is an element of escapism that we are looking for as well at all points in time, right? Now this is probably why Marvel is such a successful movie franchise, right? This is particularly why some kind of strange thrillers or probably movies of great visual appeal that allow us to get into some kind of escapism, right, attract us so much, right? And this is something that has to be a vital part of our fulfillment, right? At this point in time, I want to take a short pause. Since you guys are already, a lot of you are familiar with augmented reality. A lot of you are, in fact, familiar with Spark as well. One of the things that I hear a lot of people talk about is that I want to create this augmented reality that looks so realistic. It is wonderful. It is amazing to create augmented reality that is supremely realistic. But sometimes you don't want to create realistic experiences as well. Sometimes we want to create a portal that is basically taking you to the insides of a black hole. Now, no part of this experience is realistic, right? But it is still fun, right? If I want to be teleported into, Vincent van Gogh's painting, something that Hardik spoke about yesterday, and today, that kind of technology, that kind of processing power, and that kind of support from giants which are into mobile handset manufacturing, internet service providers like Jio, and platform, partners like Spark have enabled, we can create anything. Like probably I could make myself look like a cartoon. I could make myself look like Vincent van Gogh's painting, right? And I can basically transform the entire city. Some of our most popular filters have been filters where we've turned the leaves of trees violet and we've turned the sky pink, and this got like tons of traction. So escapism is something that goes hand in hand with augmented reality, and it doesn't have to be realistic. This is to all of you budding creators out there. Don't get too stuck on making things realistic. In fact, focus on trying to make it an unreal escape. So these are the four things that typically go into an experience being memorable for me, and that is very likely to become a habit for me, right? Now let's talk about augmented reality and where it fits. Is it here to stay? Is it here not to stay? Is it here to not? Right? Now the first model, I told you we're going to be talking about two models, and we'll keep it to two models only in the interest of time. And these are very simple models. The other model that we're going to be talking about, which is even simpler than this one, is what we call the technology acceptance model. Now it is a very valid question for any of you to say, you know what, should I get into Spark? Should I get into augmented reality? Should I get into Blender, right? Should I get into anything that is contributing towards this entire ecosystem of augmented reality? Now, to answer that question, right, there is this model that exists that's called the technology acceptance model, right? Now, this has three parts to it. Any technology is going to stay if it is easy to use. The moment the technology gets hard to use or hard to understand, it is rejected by the critical mass. It will not make it to pop culture. It will not make it mainstream. Is it easy to use? That's the number one question we're going to be talking about. Augmented reality has existed for a while. The reason why it's become mainstream now is because the ease to use it has come in now. There is no need to have an additional app now. You have Instagram on your phone. Everybody does. You've got Snapchat. You've got web. You've got Chrome, right? Web AR. AR is at your doorstep. It is right inside your phone screen. It is easy to use. It's just basically like tapping. Some other technologies that have made people comfortable with pointing cameras at things, right? Strangely, are technologies like Google Pay, Paytm, right? Phone Pay. Long story short, by virtue of the digital revolution that happened in the country and across the world, ease of use is something that is a checkbox that is massively ticked at this point in time. So that's already happened. The second check point for technology to be accepted or rejected is perceived utility. It could be easy, but it may not make any contribution to me. It may not entertain me. It may not give me escapism. It may not be of any use to me from a utilitarian point of view, or it may not educate me about something, right? It may not allow me to experience something. Then the utility goes down. The moment utility goes down, that's it. The technology is not going to be accepted again. There's a lot of technology that's easy to use, but it's not being used anymore, right? So perceived utility is something that is a test that a technology has to pass as well. It has to be useful, educative, great experience, etc., etc. Now, the third reason, which was initially not part of this technology acceptance model, but it has been added over the last 6 years or so, is perceived social currency. Everything is about my social currency. The way that I talk, the way that I behave with people, the way that I consume life around me, and the kind of people that I hang out with, the kind of people, the behavior that I show towards my people is basically me portraying myself to the world. And this is all a contribution towards social currency. Everything that I do, my brain is going to calculate and say, is this adding to my social currency? Is this adding to my quality of life? Is this adding to my enjoyment, right? Social currency is a very, very vital part of everything that we do today, right? The kind of content we watch, the kind of content we consume, the kind of workspaces we get into, the kind of culture we want to be a part of is all part of social currency. So if the technology that we're talking about adds to social currency apart from utility and ease of use, that's it, it's here to stay. And I don't think I have to repeat myself and say, what, AR is checking all these boxes, but it is, right? So that's the thing about the technology acceptance, and that's more reason for us to believe that augmented reality is here to stay, and particularly within our communication cycles and our communication ecosystems, it's right here to stay because the evolution has happened. Let's quickly look at the journey of technology right now, from its birth to acceptance, because that's the epitome of the technology, right? Not every technology becomes mainstream. So what are the big factors that contribute towards this? There's four things over here. And to start with, a technology acceptance journey begins with discovery. If people don't know that this technology exists, it will not be accepted, right? Now, one of the big things that comes in play over here is the big ticket businesses and the big tech businesses have to believe in it, right? If all tech companies or one major tech company backs it, that plays a very, very big role. It's a great shot in the arm for that technology to sort of become legit, mainstream, right? The best part about AR at this point in time is, I don't know how many of you consumed F8, which happened just earlier this month, and we are talking about Facebook taking augmented reality so seriously, right? And I've had the good fortune of having chats with the lovely people at Facebook. They, in fact, some of them have told me that there is a 10-year plan that Facebook is working towards in terms of making AR mainstream, right? And that itself is enough reason. But let's look at the other tech giants. Google has AR Core, Apple has AR Kit. Every major technology company today, Samsung has got an AR function going on. The number of people that Facebook is hiring towards the augmented reality side of things has quadrupled from 10,000 to 40,000, if I'm not wrong. My numbers may not be updated, but it's a massive amount of people that have got recruited towards this. Same is the story with Google and with Apple. And camera-based technologies are generally on their way up because acceptance is almost here. So that's very big reason for us to sort of get excited about it, right? And the other thing that once the big tech is going to back this technology and it is going to get discovered by more and more people, the next stage is engagement. Now that is where all of us come in. All of you who are consuming this chat, me, my team, everybody, right? What kind of engagement are we going to do? See, at the end of the day, platforms will create, tech companies will create a platform. What we can do with that platform, what kind of content we can produce with that platform, and whether that is something that the end user accept or reject is completely up to us as creators. Yesterday Hardik was talking about who is in this ecosystem. We're talking about developers, we're talking about 3D animators, we're talking about designers, we're talking about content strategists, we're talking about all kinds of people, right? All of us have to contribute towards making this engagement worth remembering, basically make it memorable. So businesses and creators play a very big role in terms of whether this engagement was something that was fitting some of the models that we've discussed. Is that really happening? Is that not happening? That's a good engagement. That's already happened, by the way, I'm just saying, right? So engagement has also happened. When I'm going to discover technology, new platforms, and I'm going to engage with them and I have a good time, I'm going to consider it. Right? That's where we get into the consideration side of the argument. This is where we start saying it's a trend. Most recently, we've looked at Clubhouse. It's great technology. Elon Musk spoke about it. That contributed towards discovery. And then there was a lot of engagement that people ended up liking, and now it is going right up in terms of consideration. Every week, they're doubling their user base. That is consideration working out for you, right? That's a trend at this point in time, but it could still go away, right? So what we do is we look at it over 4 to 6 quarters, and when that stays, that's when we say, there we go, it's accepted. This is the final stage. This is where the technology is legitimately mainstream, and this is where this technology has become a habit. All of these things are true with augmented reality today, right? 9 out of 10 of you listening to this workshop probably are on Instagram, and on Instagram you would have come across inevitably an AR filter. You would have consumed it, you would have shared it, you would have checked it out, you would have enjoyed it. It's even made it reels. The ecosystem just keeps evolving. So acceptance is right here. Now let's look at augmented reality in the context of all the things that we have spoken about so far, right? I want to talk about, again, the Pine and Gilmore model, where we're talking entertainment, education, escapism, and utility, and so on and so forth, right? Google actually 2 years ago spoke about the fact that Google Maps is actually something that that is actually considering adding augmented reality to it in this format, the one that you see in the bottom of the video. Is this fun? Yes. Is it useful? 100%, right? Therefore, there's no doubt about it to anybody's mind that when they do actually roll it out for the entire world, they're going to actually help make AR mainstream, and they're also going to help AR become useful. Similarly, technically AR translates to adding augmented reality to real environments and basically adding added layers of data, right? And this is a good way of doing it. Like, imagine walking across the street, you check out a store, and you scan, point your phone camera towards it, and then it talks about the timings, the ratings, what's good at it, what are the specialties. That kind of stuff is already happening, right? So that's something that Google's doing. I would actually go so far as to say that Spark has technically enhanced the reach of AR infinitely. At this point in time, we're talking about a ridiculous number of 2 million filters being created every so many days, and hundreds of thousands of creators coming together. We ourselves are a very active part of this community, and we really learn from it. And there's a massive Spark scene going on in Eastern Europe. It's happening in UK, it's happening in US, it's happening in Brazil, Spain, India, name a country, Singapore, everywhere. Right? Basically, it has, by virtue of its power of occupying real estate on everybody's phone, and obviously its vision, it's legitimately made AR mainstream, right? So we all know how this, you're literally in a workshop that is about this. Let's quickly talk about what goes into making a great AR playbook, right? Just make sure that whatever AR content that you end up creating is visually entertaining, because that's definitely something that human beings are drawn towards, and you are, I am, all of us are. Make sure that the visual appeal is never missing from this. Try as much as you can. Make it emotional, right? Make it emotional, because emotion is what people eventually remember. Emotion is basically the currency of experience. How did it make you feel? We spoke about the 10th standard board exam example, right? How did it make you feel? You felt nervous when you were writing exams. You felt relieved when you finished exams. You felt elated when you got into your college, your favorite college with your best friend, right? So context setting, storytelling actually comes from the emotional connections, right? So that is what will contribute towards recall. So the second part that you want to make it, you want to use to basically totally crack AR communication is going to be emotions. Make it emotional. Um, when I say emotional, I don't necessarily make it like sentimental or heavy, right? You can make it funny, you can make it quirky, you can make it to whatever it is that it suits your brand. The third part is make it personal. Make this experience memorable for me, because give me a piece of myself in this experience. Make it personal to me, right? I'll give you an example, and this actually fits into the whole experience economy narrative as well, right? Which is, back in the day, there used to be television, and there used to be a furniture company that would come out and say, we make the best furniture, we make the best sofas, we have the most amazing looking red sofa. When internet happened, they were targeted advertisements that said, we've got the best red sofa in the world. Today, experience economy demands an evolution. But I don't want to know if you've got the best red sofa. I want to pick what kind of sofa I want, and I want to watch it, consume it in a color that I want. And I want to check if it fits me. I want it to be about me. If you are a fashion brand, if you're into cosmetics, don't say you've got 35 new shades of lipstick. Allow me to consume this lipstick. Make it about me. And that's what is the personal element of AR, which makes it unquestionable that it is the most personal, most private, and most memorable sort of a communication piece that could potentially exist. We've been speaking about things for about, and again, in the interest of time, we've only got about 10 odd minutes before we break for questions. Let me quickly talk to you about some of the experiences that we've had the good fortune of building. Some of these we may not have built, but we found this experience to be great. So I'll just sort of very quickly walk you through illustration in terms of the 4 elements that we spoke about. We're going to talk about, sorry about that. We're going to be talking about the education, the emotional appeal, the personal, a bit inside the AR experience, and the escapism angle of it, right? So let's look at this. Let's start with the one in the middle, back to office, right? Obviously, the pandemic happened, dangerous scenes, and Singapore was one of the countries that was good. That was lucky enough to sort of come out of the pandemic soon enough from an economy point of view and controlling the spread point of view, which is why they were also one of the first countries that actually allowed for people to start coming into the offices and start working again. But it's not a joke. They can't take it lightly. So BBH, which is a very popular agency with 180 odd offices across the world, they were having a chat with us. They reached out to us, and they said, how do we basically create an experience that trains people, educates people on what's cool, what's not cool, what they should do, and what is different about them coming back to office today. So we took the example of their work scene, which is an agency setup, and we created a game out of it on Instagram that actually teaches you on what to avoid, what to attract. Like, you attract sanitization, you attract masks, you avoid groups of people, and you avoid sick colleagues, and you ask them to stay back home, right? So we added gamification elements to it. And you also want to avoid heat from your executive creative director, which falls in the form of fire, but you also want to attract briefs. So we sort of took these 4 elements and we sort of combined that into a game, and that's what you're going to see here. Start. Right, the green guy is this colleague. You're collecting money, you're collecting brief, you're collecting masks and health drinks, but you're avoiding a group of people. That's it. 15 seconds, I've consumed this game. I said, you know what, I know what to. It's not like people don't know, but there's a certain escapist angle to it. There's a certain education angle by virtue of entertainment to it, and that's exactly what we ended up creating. Right now, let's look at, when we're talking education, now let's look at a very interesting brief that we are in talks with NHS, National Health Services UK, which is one of the great medical health bodies in the world, right? And they are working with this company called Roche. What they do is they manufacture all kinds of medical equipment. Right now, they had a very interesting brief for us, which we solved through Instagram and AR and through web AR. Right now, one of the things is, one of the category of patients that come to them are people who have trouble with their eyes, right? And they actually have a device that is actually dropped into the eye, and it is technically smaller than a grain of rice. It's that small, and when it goes in there, because of the difference in pressure, it releases a certain liquid that keeps your eye in good health for about 6 months. When they were talking to people about that rice grain sized commodity product, people found it hard to believe how it works. So we actually are building a 3D model for them, which actually shows how it works. And this is not the complete part, and it actually releases the liquid, how it works. There is a lot of engagement that comes in, and it could technically be possible only through augmented reality. And it's a medical enterprise talking about educating people about medical procedures by virtue of augmented reality. Right, all of you would have come across the OnePlus Nord, right, which OnePlus launched their phone, which they remarkably made in 30 days, and they launched it during peak pandemic lockdown, right? And basically had one of the most amazing augmented reality launches, which had a complete digital unboxing experience. Just for the record, the 2 experiences I spoke about so far were built by us, but the third one was not, but it's a great job by a great team called Blippa. Look at it. This is my favorite part. Even a real phone is not going to give you an experience like this. Right? In the interest of time, I want to get to the questions, if any. I'll move to the next education example and see the last one. This is a great example again. For furniture brands, we could be talking Pepperfry, we could be talking whoever. In this particular case, Godrej Interior. They basically wanted to sort of conform to experiential economy, where gone are the days when I'm going to go into a website or an e-commerce which is already catering to experience economy by giving me personal suggestions. But if I go there and I want to check out a piece of furniture and you're going to give me a carousel of 10 images, I don't have the patience to go through it. I don't have the imagination to sort of say, you know what, oh, maybe this will look good for me. I don't have the understanding of how big or small that furniture piece is, or it will even go with the vibe and the thematics and the themes and the colors of my room. So what do we do in terms of using augmented reality to improve the consumption? What if I could, rather than consuming a flat video, rather than consuming a flat image, what if I could consume a 3D object which is very realistic looking? What if I could move it around? Make it, what does it look like from the front, from the back? What if I could actually check it out in different colors, right? That's what I want to do. That's the center of experiential economy. I don't want to check out this red couch. I want to check out a black couch because my room is just black and white. It's monochrome. Right? That's experiential economy. I don't want to stop at that. Once I've seen, this is looking good, in this color is looking great, let me project this in mixed reality. Let me use web. Let me use web XR and position it. And this is a chair that we made as a sample, and it's super realistic. So today there's technology that's available that allows facial awareness, right? And Instagram also has this, by the way, where you can lock a particular object to a particular part of the screen, and you go around it, consuming it in different angles. It's hard to tell that it's not a real chair. Like, my mom legitimately got confused. I sent it to one of my very good friends, Krish Welkar. He's been a very big part of me getting interested in AR as well. He actually sent a picture of this to one of his friends, and he said, "How do you like my new chair?" And the comment that his friend made was, "It's a great chair, but turn it the other side." He couldn't even tell that it is not even a real chair. So that's probably another example of how we could educate people in terms of what to consume, how to consume, etc., etc. I'm going to skip the next example, go into the next part, which is emotions. We started about 4 minutes late, so I hope Anamika has made a note of that. Right. Emotions, right? Engage deodorants came up to us, and this is the best part of running 4 lunches, guys, honestly, or any creative tech setup. You get to ideate, you get to listen to brands, talk about their consumers, talk about their problems, talk about what they want to achieve, talk about their ambitions. It's a great collaborative exercise. Engage basically wanted to, this was, the last Valentine's that happened earlier this year was the first pandemic Valentine's to anybody who's been alive on Earth at this point in time, right? And Engage basically recognized that this is a lockdown Valentine. Even if hypothetically I want to spend a great time with my Valentine, I'm locked up in my house. How do we sort of trigger some kind of love between them, or how do we allow them to express any kind of an emotion? And we use the very popular, guess the gibberish sort of a format with the title card and randomization, added a little bit of music to it, and created this thing where you click a picture and make it into a postcard that you can share with your Valentine. And this is what resulted. Got a lot of traction, right? And the theme was very simple. We made it personal. We made it about emotions. We said that face partner makes when they get angry, they're hungry, they're hangry, they miss you, they're feeling too much love towards you. Different faces. Make that face completely built on Spark. Clicks a picture, shareable, right? So that's what we did for Engage. Perfetti, which is a confectionery brand, toffees. They have a very popular candy. It's actually a lollipop called Chupa Chups, and they actually came out with limited edition lollipops which had embossing on them, which said "Love you," "Heartbreak," "BFF." Talk to my hand, basically all the emoticons, emojis that the Gen Z and the Zoomers are using these days. And they said, how do we get the people to know that we've got these limited edition lollipops? So we created a filter out of it where we said, DYLM, do you love me? And so what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to say your crush's name and you say, do you love me? And if the result, whatever result shows up, it's just randomized. You can share it with them, not share it with them, save it on your device, do whatever you want with it, right? And you can call out a crush's name. In this particular case, this girl who was the client actually talks about Brad Pitt. Do you love me? And let's see what happens.
Brad Pitt, do you love me?
Apparently a heartbreak, right? So
Brad
that's also
Pitt, do you love
emotion,
me?
right?
Be like,
I'll basically quickly walk you through this next brief. Tinder, again, Valentine's season, and this was before Valentine's. One of the main thing about Tinder is, people go out, meet new people, sort of, a lot of the times people sort of woo people, right? There's pickup lines involved and all of that stuff involved. You're meeting people, you've never met them in person before, and today you're not able to go out, you're not able to meet, you're not able to, even if you do, you're talking through your mask. So basically, we took a very simple concept, worked with Chutney on this one. They said, what does flirting through masks sound like? So what we did was we sort of we wrote a lot of one-liners, randomized it. It stops at something randomly with a mask, which is the context for the pandemic. And then you're supposed to sort of unscramble it and get it right before the time runs out.
with masks, be like, दूर सी दिखा तो क्यूट था, वही रहो. दूर सी दिखा तो क्यूट था. दूर से देखा तो क्यूट था, वही रहो.
Right. Simple idea, got a lot of traction. Let's quickly talk about how we can make the experience about ourselves, personal experiences. Here's the cosmetics, the fashion, whatever statements we make. And like we already spoke very quickly about, don't tell me you've got new shades of lipstick. Show me the lipsticks, I'm going to try them on, right? This is what we did. Facebook now actually allows this as an out-of-the-box solution. It's legitimately there. You go to Spark, you just say hair segmentation, and you can make this in legitimately 15 minutes. That's how amazing the technology is at this point in time. That's not even real hair, but it looks very realistic. Obviously, a direct fit for any cosmetic brand. Same is the case with other cosmetic companies, probably a lipstick brand, right? Make it about them. Make it about them. That's the whole scene. Geo, we've been working with Geo quite a lot, actually. We worked with Geo during Holi, where we sort of brought Holi to the people. And I'm not going to talk about that example in the interest of time. The other thing was Geo is one of those rare companies that is basically funding, sponsoring, supporting all 8 teams involved in IPL. and they're obviously aware that this IPL happened with empty stadiums, and they wanted to sort of give the users like a little bit of a fan zone experience that used to be a real box experience, and now they wanted to sort of bring that into augmented reality. So we sort of created 8 masks, each suiting every team, and we sort of created a 360. We took a 360 sphere of the stadium, added background noise, and we created this film. Right? Right. Let's talk about escapism. Like I have mentioned several times, and Hardik mentioned several times yesterday, and all of you tutors, Tanisha, everybody's talking about it. The limit to how great an experience is going to be is how true you are going to be to being original and trying to be creative about it, and obviously all of the sciences that we discussed. Escapism, which is a very big part of anybody's experience. We created this one of these days. We just we were just feeling trippy. We said, how about we sort of play with color, LUTs, etc., etc. How about we see the world in a very different way? Trippy scenes, that's what this filter called. Got a lot of traction, and look at that. It's just like a normal room. It's my friend's house, and that's what it ends up looking like, right? And we created a lot of filters like this ghost image. We create the filter on the extreme left is a very cool filter, which is kind of like walking into an aquarium with all the aquatic animals and sharks and everything. We did not create that. The other two experiences on the screen we did. And there's supposed to be audio on it. You see the whale actually making noises. I can actually leave a link to that experience if you guys are curious, but that's the sound's not got captured over here. There's a ghost image. You tap, and then it basically captures an image of yours, and you can walk away, and the ghost image stays there. Just funky stuff, right? Escapism, entertainment. This is just basically last December. We said, you know what? Here's the dancing Santa. Let's do something about it. Scaled it up and down, but basically put it there. We could create games. We could do a lot of stuff. So yeah, we do a lot of these games. This is something we ended up doing for Bacha, who's a hip hop artist. He was actually producing a fire track. Like, it was a dope track. It was basically about setting things on fire. The best part about this, fun fact, whatever, like, basically it takes the trigger of you opening your mouth and basically sets your body on fire. Here's the best part. There is no design element in this. To all you coders out there, this is completely done using noise. It's called Perlin noise. You can connect with us later. Mohsen created this filter. Big shout out to the guy creating great filters. You can have a chat with him about how he ended up making this. This, again, creativity and like the ambition. You can create anything you want on Spark. This got crazy traction, like 130,000 people checked it out in 2 days or something. Right. That's probably my cue to say augmented reality can be lit. Quick recap. Augmented reality, AR ticks all boxes: entertainment, escapism, education, aesthetic, social currency, utility, ease of use, everything. So don't worry about it. It's here to stay, and this is a great opportunity to sort of get it started on it. Make it about them. Make it about your end consumer. Follow the rules of communication we've discussed. I'm leaving this presentation out there with Askar and the Incubate India team, and it's ready for download for anybody who wants to check it out. So keep these rules in mind. Make it about emotion. Make it about personalizing things, make it about entertainment. And obviously AR is enabled by the big tech enablers from Facebook to Apple to Google to everyone. So all the more reason. I'm going to conclude by saying, I think the crux of all of it is imagine, connect with the community, and create one experience at a time. And that probably actually concludes my presentation. Let me just quickly go and probably stop sharing my screen. There you go, Anamika. I think, are you mute? I don't know.
Hi.
Yes.
I forget to unmute myself. I'm so sorry. So as I said, it was very insightful. And, it gives confidence to people like me, at least, who are not quite, tech savvy, that I can actually ideate something meaningful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I would request the students to put their questions in the chat. There's one question that I have. I've uploaded my first AR effect. Tell me how to monetize it.
Right. So here's the thing, right? At this point in time, I think this question came up yesterday also. Hardik also spoke about it very quickly. At this point in time, there is a definite demand, Anamika, for good creators. right? Brands will pay good creators, artists will pay good creators. When we started creating experiences for people, we were actually creating experiences for brands. But today, the entire ecosystem has evolved to the point that 1 out of 2 briefs that we get is from creators themselves. Like an influencer will come to us and they'll say, like Bacha, right? They'll come to us and they'll say, I want to create a filter that is about my vibe, about my personality, right? About Spark, if you're going to become a great Spark AR creator, people like us will technically hire you. That's monetization. There's people like Superfan, people like us, all of us. Brands are going to pay you. A lot of great freelance scene going on at this point in time. So if you're going to be a good AR creator, forget about being an AR creator. If you're going to strategize good AR communication channels and vehicles, if you're a coder, if you're a designer, if you're a strategist, whatever it is that you are, you represent, artists, influencers, there's obviously a lot of money to be made. If the question is about whether they can directly make money from Spark itself, no, it doesn't. It's not like that, right? It's not like IGTV. It's not like YouTube creators sort of a monetization scene. But I would imagine that there's actually more money. You will technically get funded. That is how untapped the scene is at this point in time. It's not even scratching the surface. If you're going to be a good Spark AR creator, if you're good, mind you, there's tons of money to be made, definitely.
Right. There's another question. Can we have a CTA buttons?
I think you should ask Facebook that. We've been asking for it for a while now. But I see why Facebook is not hurrying into it, because you see, Anamika, I'll give you a strange example to sort of tell you, right? Google started monetizing maps, right? Big time. And the way that they make money from maps is by virtue of tying up with the Ubers of the world and the Swiggies of the world and the Zomatos of the world that use the entire map API. But they started it by technically making it free, right? And they did not hurry business into it. It started off as Google Earth. Initially, there were 7 wonders of the world that you could check out. Then it was about maps. It was not about business. It was not about... So any technology, if it has to become a habit, you should not hurry into giving it business handles, right? CTS sounds great, but probably what will happen is, unfortunately, remember the second point that I mentioned, right? Engagement has to be accepted by the audience for it to become a habit. There is a risk of brands overdoing it. There is a risk of creators not thinking things through and adding CT unnecessarily, right? And that's when the end user will reject consuming an AR experience. So probably something that is in the works. We know for a fact that they are working towards CTAs, but it should probably take just a little bit more time. We have very good reason to believe that in a year or so, CTAs will be here, but let us solidify the user base, make it a habit first. At this point in time, not every brand has CTAs. Some brands do. Definitely some brands do, some brands don't. So a lot of brands actually don't. So we'll probably have to wait it out.
Right. So other question is that Spark or AR Studio is asking for Windows 10 and it is not supported with Windows 8. May I know the direct link?
I'm not entirely sure. Most of my team is on Mac or Windows 10 at this point in time. I just generally in life, I would recommend upgrading to Windows 10, not just about Spark, but just generally because a lot of ecosystems tools work on Windows 10 seamlessly. I'm not entirely sure about it, but I think I should be able to figure out, or somebody from my team should be able to figure it out, some kind of troubleshooting for how to make it work Windows 8. That person can connect with me later, probably.
Perfect. Is it possible for different backgrounds to trigger different effects?
Yes, actually, background segmentation. Sorry, can you repeat that question? I may have misunderstood.
Is it possible for different backgrounds to trigger different effects?
Yes, technically. So basically, there's a list of things that can trigger anything for anything to happen inside an augmented reality experience. Different triggers itself will produce different backgrounds, or you can randomize it and stop it at something. When you stop it at something, you can probably change the CT again, say raise your eyebrow, open your mouth. So yeah, technically that is possible. You can again connect with my team later. We can sort of give them like a very quick masterclass demo or something like that.
Sure. So there is a question for, I think, me. Some of you are asking about your certificates, about your T-shirts, and somebody is also mentioned that you've already submitted your effect and you have received an email also. We'll get back to you about what's next after this, right? So there's other question is that how to enable two-phase filter.
Sorry, say that again, Anamika. Your voice broke.
How to enable two-phase filter.
How to enable a face filter?
Two-phase.
Well, it's a build actually. Oh, okay, right. Again, it's I personally don't create filters on Spark, but yeah, like so one of the, in fact, it's a great point, and I should have mentioned it sooner in the presentation as well. One of the best things, and one of the things that we ended up doing initially also, is a filter can actually behave differently based on how many people are on it. You would have definitely seen a couple's quiz, right, where one face is identified, different thing is happening, but the moment the other face is identified, the whole thing changes, the whole scene changes. Again, this is more a question with a very simple answer. I can basically answer it, half of it myself, but I don't want to embarrass myself by giving the wrong answer. But yeah, we can probably stay back and talk about this. There's ways to make this happen.
Right.
Yeah.
How did your current skill set assist you in learning AI? Very personal question.
Well, I've been in the business of communication, just generally speaking, and digital, and I've been mostly an insights pop culture sort of a guy. I've been very interested in pop culture, and creative tech is all about pop culture, what people are consuming. AR was the obvious evolution to that, and how has it helped? Well, it's probably helped me make a career, great work roles previously. Company that I've set up right now, which is funded, probably looking to very aggressively expand as well. So my skill sets were probably not, I don't know how much of it will match. I come from a strategy, copywriting strategy, core strat, marketing communication background. And for me, this was a new plaything. This was a new canvas that allowed me to sort of create very personal, very emotional, very hyper personal sort of entertaining experiences. So for me, this is new toys to play with, and I welcome it. And it's evolving, so it's getting better for me.
So the other question is, which one is better, AR, Spark AR Lab or Lens Studio?
Well, I'll tell you, well, both are great platforms, honestly. Lens Studio is also fantastic. I have nothing against it. We actually deal with both. We deal with Lens Studio, we deal with Spark as well. Something that I've noticed is Lens Studio was super evolved in 2018, the latter half of 2018. At that point in time, Spark was getting started. At that point in time, Spark was only on Mac. It was not on Windows. But the pace with which Spark has evolved, right? That's one half of the story. The other half of the story is the community. So on Facebook today, we have groups like Spark AR Community. On Instagram, we have Spark AR Creators. Just the just the amount of information that is getting exchanged there, the kind of help that is existing on YouTube. All of you can try this. Basically, go and try to look up for help in terms of creating some kind of a filter on Spark versus Lens Studio. The kind of guidance that you get for Spark, because the community is something that has been nurtured and built. Part of it by Facebook, part of it by the people themselves. At this point in time, I think Spark is sort of edging ahead. Like this workshop was not about Lens Studio, it was about Spark. The other half of this answer is also, Anamika, that for various reasons that we don't have time to get into, Instagram is more pop culture habit, mainstream habit than Snapchat at this point in time. For 90% of the countries out there, people are not active on Snapchat. For some countries like Saudi Arabia, some parts of US, Snapchat for a different demographic, but even that is being replaced by Discord now, which is a different sort of a media piece altogether. But I think from an acceptance point of view and also career growth point of view, Spark definitely. And it's got more help and it's evolving at a faster pace. So yeah, inching ahead, Spark.
Okay, this is totally not related to what we're talking. Yeah, मेरी
Okay.
आवाज थोड़ी अजीब है. I can't help it, yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So okay. There's a
right.
question, and do you give training for aspiring developers who want to learn Spark here?
Yeah, we'd love to. Actually, we're always looking for excited people. We're always looking. In fact, we always have some of the kids interning. It's a very new company, technically speaking. We've been active only since November. We are a pandemic company, so to speak. But we are always looking forward to some of the young talent coming out and learn with us. When they are good, they stay back because we have a great culture. Subtle plug in there, but yeah, definitely open to guiding and helping people out. Definitely.
Right. Does graphic card affect the quality of AR like Nvidia, AMD, Intel Iris?
Yes. So basically, today Spark actually allows for you to create a model, say for example, on something like Blender, and sort of import it. And of course, like Spark itself has a great library of 3D objects. Like if you want to put chashma or if you want to put a hat, there's a lot of like wig. बहुत सारी चीजें already हैं. There's a lot of things on Spark already. But definitely, going to your originality, you're going to create a great 3D effect, right? Like you're going to probably create like an object that you can place on plane, or you're going to create something that calls for a grid, like probably make a car or something. You're going to create a 3D object for that, and not for Spark itself. Spark itself will work on, it doesn't have any category, like of course it's going to have a graphics card, which is a great graphic card, like capable one, then it's going to be smooth. But even without it, Spark is going to be fine, right? But for you to sort of build great sequences, for you to build great 3D objects on Blender, Maya, whatever it is that you build on, predominantly Blender, you're definitely going to have to need a graphics card. But if you want to create basic filters, like 70% of the filters that you see out there can be built without having like a fancy graphics card. For 30% of those, yes, it will improve your performance.
Perfect. Can I deploy an AR effect created by Spark AR in another app which I'm developing? Or is there any other tool to do that?
I wouldn't think so at this point in time. I do think that there is talks that is going to happen in terms of API integrations and such. Like, for example, I think we are talking about multi-build APIs that came up in F8, but it is not exactly what I don't know if the person who's asking this question is talking about creating a Spark AR effect and deploying it on a different third-party app. That's not possible at this point in time. It will stay within the ecosystem. But there are APIs that are going to happen between Messenger and Instagram, and so on and so forth within the Facebook network. So probably going forward in the future, but we can't comment on that. I think somebody from Facebook is much better prepared to do that, or in a better place to do that. At this point in time, you're not going to be able to put a Spark AR effect on a third-party app, like no, not right now.
Perfect.
But you can always take, technically every
Yeah.
Spark effect is a link. That's the best part. That's why the ecosystem is so easy to accept, right? So you can always link an experience to Spark by
Right.
virtue of the embedding the link, the button click, which will take people away to whatever, right? So that is possible, but not that within that app the filter plays natively. I doubt it. No.
Right. Okay, so the next one is, can we make AR game with Spark Studio?
100%, 100%. In fact, we keep making games all the time. The different kinds of games, we are sort of looking at creating new kinds of games all the time. And the best part is that back in the day, hyper casual games were tab based. So everything that had to do with a game, be it Candy Crush, Subway Surfer, whatever it is that we pick up was tab based. But today we can actually trigger different kinds of game experiences through opening your mouth, tilting your head. There's so many experiences like that we create where you tilt the head and the car moves. You open your mouth and it jumps. This. In fact, on Spark, you can actually make an object jump just by voice. You can say jump and it'll jump. So in fact, games have become even more like, extra sensory. More of your senses are involved in creating game experiences on Spark. Many times, like a part of our business is also creating microsite games and, superpost and all of these things. But those games are now moving to Spark because of the added control that we have by virtue of different kinds of inputs. Open mouth, close mouth, pout, raise your hand, whatever, right? Speak, shout, jump your eyebrows. There's different kinds of games. Tilt your head, turn your head, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, definitely games is a very, very big part of the Spark scene right now.
Right. What is the minimum system configuration required?
I don't think for most of the filters you need to have a dedicated graphic card. Like you mentioned, Windows 8 is not working. I'm not completely aware of that, but I don't think there is anything particular. Like I am on a very basic MacBook Air and I can use Spark very conveniently. Yeah, and it just has a few updates that you keep doing. Depends on how old your laptop is, I guess, but it doesn't need to have any dedicated graphic cards and those kind of scenes. Definitely not.
Will Spark AR filter introduced to WhatsApp or any other video calling apps, video calls in future?
100%. In fact, we are, multiplayer. In fact, not now. In fact, 2 years ago, they sort of started talking about it and they created it. It was rolled out in US, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, definitely, like Instagram, like yesterday, they started rolling out rooms. Definitely, I can get on a video call by virtue of using the Spark AR filter. And I can technically go so far as to create a game. I'm not sure if that is completely rolled out, but that is something that I've actually seen it 2 years ago on F8. So yeah, yes, but not like on any call, but obviously within like an Instagram video call or something like that, you can definitely do it.
Right. Is there any permission required from the person or any institute to whom we used in our AR project? Do we require permissions?
Well, you have guidelines like you do all the time. Like when you're downloading Spark, you adhere to certain guidelines. And when you publish a filter, there you have to adhere to certain guidelines. And in fact, if you don't adhere to those guidelines, if you don't follow those guidelines, your filter is not going to get accepted anyways. There's obviously rules against violence, but there's no license per se. As long as you are okay with most of the rules, and these are very generous and very acceptable rules. Honestly, we've never had a filter rejected for strange reasons. But yeah, as long as you're going to keep it within, like all platforms, you have to follow certain rules. There's no nudity, no violence, etc., etc., no racism, no beautification of face to sort of make it look like your face would have looked better with this or something like that. That was a little strict. Now it's getting a little lenient, but I don't think there's any license per se. Anybody can create effects on Spark at any point in time. Like you can start at 12 o'clock, finish one at 12:30. It's that easy and good.
How much do you charge to teach AR?
we don't charge. We don't teach AR in the school. We do whatever we can in terms of sort of contributing towards the community. So we don't have a curriculum per se. I wish we got paid for it, but yeah. I thought for a second, Anamika, you're going to ask how much do you charge to make an effect. I was like, no, I'm not going to tell you that on a live stream. No, I don't want anything. No.
There's a question over here, like, how much do we have, like, how much do you charge for that? I was like, yeah, I might jump the gun,
Please have that person reach out to me, faiz@fullunches.com, chalke@fullunches.com. We have other channels which we will discuss, but no, I don't think it will be wise to sort of spoil the market by talking about our prices.
Right. Is AR used in healthcare?
It is definitely, like the NHS example that I spoke to you about. It has definitely got very, very big. In fact, healthcare AR is a thing. In fact, there are people who are doing 3D modeling, particularly to sort of explain to people like exactly what's going to happen in an angioplasty, for instance, right? Rather than watch a video, what kind of a augmented experience can you sort of use to sort of check out exactly what kind of a surgical process being conducted on you? What are these medical equipment? Like I told you, that Roche equipment, which is smaller than a grain of rice, we are through AR telling people how it works and all the vital information. There's going to be commentary that is going to run in the background when all of this happens. So healthcare, 100% yes.
A very simple t-shirt I just saw somewhere yesterday. There is a t-shirt by the name of Versatility.
Okay.
You wear the t-shirt, you have a scanner, and it'll tell you how your body's working. So organs internally are working. Yeah.
Wow. Wearable AR is definitely something really big. I've heard Mark Zuckerberg talk about it several times. Google had glasses. Wearable AR is definitely, it's definitely something that is going to be the future. And what happens, Anamika, is today we are talking about the nascent and untapped and under-indexed market of augmented reality, but the growth is actually going to come in these areas as well. That is why the kind of careers, in fact, I have a Clubhouse session with one of my good friends 2 days from now, where we're going to be talking about careers in AR and basically the new age careers, which will also have a lot of IoT, wearable AR and all of that stuff. The kind of careers that will come up, Anamika, is something we can't even begin to guess right now.
So everyone knows that you have to join Clubhouse after 2 days later.
Right, please do.
So you want to know more about it? Join Clubhouse, ask him more questions.
Yes, please. Thank you. Please join in. That'll be good fun.
So what do you think about the future of AR, especially with lockdown? Do you believe that all our meetings will also be replaced by AR meetings?
Well, I don't think there is, I don't understand the talk about replacement. I think evolution is a better word. And considering the lockdown, AR will play a very big role in terms of, without being in contact, without being in somebody's physical space, basically consuming some kind of a better experience. I definitely see AR playing a role in terms of communication, commerce. Even movies are being promoted through AR right now. And the pandemic, the lockdown has definitely fastened. I think yesterday Hardik mentioned what are the 5 big factors why AR is winning, and one of the things he mentioned is the pandemic, apart from the 5Gs and all of those things. So yes, will AR replace anything? I doubt it. I doubt if it will replace anything per se. It will just basically make your experience better. I don't think it's going to replace anything now.
Okay. Then we have, how is AR different than VR? And does VR glasses, do the VR glasses can produce the same experience as AR effects?
Look, AR and VR are sort of related in terms of superimposing a layer of data inside your line of vision. But no, VR actually comes with, I wouldn't call it a handicap, but a necessity to actually have a device. AR is something that is very commitment free. Kind of like it's no strings attached sort of a thing, right? It'll work on Instagram, it'll work on web. You don't really need to have a particular device to sort of consume an AR experience. Unlike VR, basically you're going to have to wear a device. VR is way more immersive than AR is. There's no doubt about that, but it is also way more cut off, right? So yeah, you're not going to be able to sort of you're completely immersed in the VR reality, which is also a great platform. We can probably have a chat about it some other time. But these are different audience bases, at least in the socioeconomic segmentations within India that we're looking at. We see 96% of the people consuming AR, but only 4% people consuming VR. But whoever consumes VR will basically be like the torch bearers of it and talk about it, and they'll be evangelists. But VR and AR definitely have major differences in terms of where it works. VR will only work on VR enabled devices, or like like your Oculus and so on and so forth, or Hive and all of these. Vibe, sorry, not Hive. But AR does not have any such commitments that go with it. They both serve different kinds of purposes. So VR is very serious communication that I've signed up for and I'm ready to wear a device for. AR is something which in the Pine and Gilmore model comes towards absorption. I'll casually consume it. I will not immediately make a purchase decision, but I will remember that you had something cool like that.
Right. On which programming language AR is based?
JavaScript, actually AR is different. Like on web AR, we are talking about 3JS, we're talking about Babylon JS, which is JavaScript. We're talking about WebGL, different kinds of frameworks that come in for web AR. For Spark, if you're good at JavaScript, Spark is a great platform for you. The best part about Spark is it's legitimately creative tech in terms of if you're a 100% creative, zero tech person with no coding experience, you can still create great filters through your experience in Blender and Photoshop, After Effects. It's a design tool also. You can use patches, patch editors. I think Tanisha was talking about it yesterday, and create an experience. And if you do not have any understanding of design, you're an out and out coder, you can create the same exact effect by virtue of code. Which is JavaScript. So our team actually has a mixture of this kind of talent. My co-founder actually is completely coding based and he uses JavaScript for most of the things. And some of the new entrants of the team are using patches. So basically it's evolving as a design tool and a tech tool at the same time. It's moving towards design if you ask me. But yeah, for just generally coding for AR per se, we are talking about 3JS, Babylon JS, WebGL, but basically JavaScript. Even for Spark, entirely JavaScript. If you're good at JavaScript, you're going to be good at Spark.
Right. Can we collaborate AR with smart robots like Sophia?
I don't think AR is something that you're going to I definitely think there are machine learning elements when it comes to talking about image recognition and so on and so forth. So you can definitely use machine learning and artificial intelligence to make experiences better going forward. I definitely see AI get into machine learning, get into Spark as well. But a robot like Sophia, which is like a humanoid technically, with its own borderline sentient intelligence, I'm not, at least at this point in time, I'm not able to imagine what Sophia would do with AR. Maybe she or he or it would itself or himself use it. Wow, this is a complicated thing to say. But no, I don't think that in the scene that we are looking at in terms of AR today, a humanoid would probably make all that much of a difference. It's mostly a personal experience that we've been talking about throughout the talk. How do I consume an experience better than anybody? How do I create an experience that somebody is going to consume within the confines of their phones in their immediate reality? Probably not got to do with an AI-backed robot at this point in time.
What is the possibility of a device like Microsoft HoloLens being used in India as of AR reach right now?
Well, it's a great device. It's definitely see that. So okay, so what happens is the permeation of habit actually happens through simpler experiences. Somebody who's never heard of AR is not going to jump on a Vive or a Google Glass or even like the HoloLens. They won't do that. They will consume AR in terms of the puppy filters or probably taking a quiz on which Indian dish are you, which Marvel character are you. That is what will still take about a year or so in terms of acceptance. And when people say next time they're going to buy a cell phone, right, Anamika, they're going to now for the first time ask questions like, oh, what kind of AR, inherent AR support does it have, right? That like Google Pixel is being bought because they have the AR playground, right? Today, all cell phones during their launch just talk about the camera because people are asking that question. Going forward, that will become more of a norm where people will say, what kind of AR-backed abilities is it already coming with? I personally think there's about a year or two for that situation to arrive, but it will happen gradually while the habit develops.
Right. Can we use artificial intelligence and machine learning to make a standalone AR using Spark AR? Very good
Yes,
question.
yes, a great question. I know for a fact, and I keep hearing my team talk about it. Apparently, in some of the updates that Facebook has been sharing, they've been talking about using ML, machine learning, to sort of make a model that understands better, does more, reads an image, and does several things. All of that stuff. It's already existent. In fact, it's not even the near future that we're talking about. Maybe not to the evolved capacity that it could eventually become, but it's there. And I think whoever's asked this question should probably reach out to us and have a chat with Merson and the team, definitely.
Ishav Verma has asked this question. So,
Thank
Ishav,
you.
you know
Thank
you have to reach out to Faiz now.
Yes. Don't ask for money. I
Yes.
mean, we'll do that eventually, but
Right.
yeah.
Thank you very much for your time and your patience. I know it takes a lot to, answer all the questions and
Not at
be
all. No.
near, edge all the time. So thank you very much for your
My
time,
pleasure, and
and we look forward to more interactions with you.
definitely. Thank you very much. I had a great time. Thank you, everyone involved,
Have a
and
great day
everybody.
ahead.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye. Okay. So there are few questions about where do you see the scope of AR and everything. There's a small thing that we discussed yesterday also. The technology is as it is, is going to take over. It's with irrespective of the fact that we do want to believe that India is not that advanced as stuff, but the fact is that technology is a very very pertinent part of Indian startup and Indian workforce now. So it will certainly, whether it is AR, it is AI or machine learning, whatever it is going to be very impactful in time to come, and we will look forward to you children coming up with ideas and solutions, and maybe a skill set that is supportive. Right now, I would like to invite Tanisha and Anuj from Incubating for the hands-on session. Thank you, both of you.
Thanks for the
Thank you, Ramya
invitation.
ma'am.
So, yeah, hello everyone. Welcome into the second session regarding Facebook Spark here. And as we have seen yesterday, we took you through the hands-on session along with some basic introduction and process of how to register. We still receive few queries, so I'm gonna take you through the step and processes again this time. But this time the hands-on session would be a bit different because Tanisha would be taking it to another level, and you'll get to know more about making AR effects, and I'm gonna go through the steps and do a revision for you guys. So I'm just sharing my screen. Give me a moment, and then we'll start. So yes, my screen is visible. So I'll start. So basically, this is the website. You have to go through the website to process. But before that, I have a small presentation which we'll be starting on. So Facebook Spark AI Labs powered by Incubate IND hands-on sessions. So let's start. We wish you all the best for the process, for the journey which you're going to have in this Spark AR. And the agenda for today's session would be introduction, why Spark AR, opportunities and scope. It has already been covered yesterday and today in the previous session. Process of participating in the contest. This would be a revision for you guys so that you can get to know the process of submitting the AR effects, registering for the initiative, and how you're going to build it and making your first year effect. So this part would be taken by Tanisha. So what is this initiative about? As it is said in the previous sessions, Facebook Spark AI Labs is an initiative which aims to uplift and improvise the Spark AI creators by providing hands-on training and workshops around the world. And this is the first time collaboration of Facebook Spark AI Labs in India, and that is with Incubate IND, where we aim to uplift the and take it to another level by upskilling the students along with I'm really I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Okay. So let's start. Yeah. So we are gonna uplift students by taking this hands-on session and pushing them to upload and make AR effects and publicize the AR, Spark AR, and augmented reality at the same time while giving information, spreading information, and spreading awareness regarding the COVID vaccination and appreciating our frontline workers. Why we are doing this? Because as we know, we are in a pandemic and some people are really scared to do this. And what could be best while spreading awareness sitting in front of your laptop or a desktop? That sounds fun, right? Now, the basic question is that what is Spark AR? Generally, people think that it's a website, something it's a studio, something it's a tool. So, you all are right in one another way. I'll give you a layman example. You must be doing coding. If you're a techie, you use PyCharm, you use ID, you use command prompt, and sometimes you use Atom. And if you are a graphic designer, you use Photoshop, right? You use what we say Lighthouse. So it's similar way. It's just a studio. It's a platform. It's an application where you develop your AR effects without code. So basically, it's I won't say it's a no code, but I'll say it's a low code thing which will help you. And it's a pick and drop studio. It's similar to Photoshop where you develop your effects. Opportunities and scopes has been already discussed. I'll just these are the 5 opportunities which you guys can get if you are into our. And as you can see the graph, there was a question in the chat few minutes back that what's the scope of AR in the upcoming future. So as you can see in the graph, this is the scope of AR in the upcoming future. And in this scope, what are the types of roles you can get if you are into AR? That's 3D artist, software developer, system validation engineer, software designer, design architect, and many more. But these are the top 5. And without wasting time, let's get started with how to participate in Spark AI, Facebook Spark AI Labs initiative. So this is the website. This is today's session, and you have to register here. Let's go to the website once. The about section, why this initiative, what you're going to do, the deadline, and yes, the most important part, resources. If you follow my cursor, here are the resources which you need to download. What are these resources about? How you're going to use it would be covered by Tanisha. The challenges which we are going to face, or the challenges on which we will be developing our AR effect, are mentioned in front of you. Creating an AR effect to celebrate frontline COVID warriors, to appreciate them for their services, for their duty. And the second one is creating an AR effect for celebrating getting vaccinated so we can publicize more vaccination drives and, make people not think that it's not safe. It is safe and make people think to take the vaccinations as soon as possible. Here is the schedule. The last date is 20 June, but don't wait for the last date. Make sure to submit before that because it will increase the chances of getting a filter approved faster. So let's start. Here's the button you need to click for register now. So I have my details here. Yeah. Okay. I just need to select. You need to fill in the details. You are as you are a student, you need to fill in the student section. I'll just put ABC to make it faster, and I'll just copy this link. You need to put in your LinkedIn and GitHub URL, but to make the process faster, I'm just putting some random links and register now. This is the team dashboard, and as soon as you register, you will have a presentation in front of you. This presentation will take you through the process of registering, how you're going to register, how you're going to complete the whole registration process, what are the steps, how you're going to download your studio, what are the steps you need to follow, along with making your first AR effect till publishing your first year effect. So we have covered everything in this presentation, and this presentation will help you a lot while making your AR filter because it will be available here and you can access it anytime. And here are the steps mentioned if just in case you want to follow the steps. And the next process is Spark Air Labs. Click on that, you will be redirected to another website, and just make sure that you have logged in your Facebook so that the registration, I just need, just give me a moment. This is my another account. Okay. Just so you just make sure to log in into Facebook so that it would be easy to register. So you will be redirected to Facebook Blueprint. Make sure to read everything. It will give you a knowledge and edge over the things, and you will know what to do and what not to do. And you will get some tips and tricks as well, and how you can use it. As you can see, AR shopping, AR games, world of AR. There are a number of things you can do. When you come to the bottom of the pages, you just need to click on register here, and you will be redirected again to this page, and you just need to log in with Facebook. So this is why I said that you need to log in your Facebook so that we can proceed, and we'll continue. Click on continue. You can edit this and select the information which you want to give to the Facebook blueprint, but it would be best if you click on continue. And yes, right now it's time to update your time zone. You just need to look out here for 5:30 GMT, 5:30 plus 5:30. You will find three locations: Kolkata, Mumbai, Delhi. You can select according to you. I'm close to New Delhi, so I'll be selecting New Delhi and click on update time zone. You just need to enter your mail address, click on accept and submit. Boom. We have completed the registration process, and the next step is getting started with your AR filter. How you're going to do that? Click here. As you can see my arrow, download Spark AR Studio. Click here and you will be redirected to Spark AR website, and you just need to click download. The download would start. I will cancel it because I already have the studio, and you will see this icon when you click on install, as you can see here on the top, and then your registration process has been completed, your studio has been downloaded, and then you can get started with making a first year effect. After making the first year effect, what you need to do after making a first year effect, publishing it, and then you need to take a screenshot. Which screenshot needs to be taken? Tanisha will get you through that. And where do you need to submit? One of the major questions. Just come to the team dashboard, log in with your mail ID here. As you can see, my name is here. Click on submit screenshot. Select any one of the problem statement which you are creating. And here the question comes, do we need to create only one or multiple would work? So the answer is you need to create at least one, but if you're making more, that's on you and it would be far more appreciated. So you can select anyone. Suppose I'm making an AR effect on getting vaccinated. Click on this and then select the image you want to select, screenshot, and just click on open. It will be submitted. Then click on submit idea, and yes, your registration has been completed. Click on communication channels to join our Slack channel where you can share your filters, you can ask your queries, and we'll be happy to help. I guess I have covered all the points here, and I'll just check. Yes. So now it's over to Tanisha. I'll just go into backend, backstage, and yes, over to you.
Okay. Hi everyone. Anuj, can you just confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Hi everyone. This is Tanisha from Incubate In, and okay, there are a lot of queries in the chat, so I would like to tell you that we'll take all the queries after we have finished today's workshop. So if you have joined yesterday's workshop, you might know that yesterday I taught you how to make very basic 2D and 3D effects. So today's workshop will also be a beginner level, but we'll definitely move a step ahead and we'll work more with 3D effects today. So we'll be learning basically three things today. The first will be how to remove background. So there were a lot of queries yesterday about how we can change the background effect and everything. So first we'll be dealing with that. Then second, we'll move on to 3D objects and we'll see how 3D objects behave when we try to align them with our face. And the third and the final thing that I'll be teaching you today will be the patch editor. So what is the patch editor? What is its use? How it works? We're going to see all of that. So let's just get started. I'll share my screen. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. I'll just open the Spark AR Studio now. Okay, so for the first thing that we'll be doing today, we'll try to remove the background and change it according to ourselves. So just click on New Project, and it takes some time to open. Okay, so the Spark AR Studio has opened. All right. So as I told you yesterday, we have three panels here: the scene panel, the assets panel, and the inspector panel. We'll be working in these three panels mainly. This is our preview section from where we can have a look at how our AR effect will look once it's on our phone. This is the main area where we'll be working. So I'll just zoom it in, and I told you you can't simply move like pressing the cursor in AR Studio. For zooming in and out, you have to press Control, press Alt, and then zoom it in. For moving it left and right, you have to press Alt, and then you can move left and right. For rotating the screen, you have to press Control, and you can move it like this. So I'll adjust it according to myself, and then we can start. And let's just zoom it a little bit. Okay. So the alignment looks fine now. All right. So I told you the first thing that we'll be doing today is to remove background. So for that, we'll go to the scene panel. We'll click on camera, and you can see there have been some things have been added to the inspector panel. There's the texture extraction, the segmentation. So for changing the backgrounds, the Spark AR Studio works on the principle of segmentation. So what we have to do is we have to separate the user's face and the background by using the segmentation options, and then we can change the background by keeping the user's face intact. So I'll click on texture extraction, and then I'll click on segmentation just below it and person. Okay. So you can see, as we have clicked on texture and segmentation, two assets have been added on our assets panel: the camera texture and the person segmentation mask texture. Okay, so now we'll click on add objects, and we'll add a rectangle. Just type in a rectangle. Okay, so you can see a rectangle has been added, and it is under the canvas. So as I told you yesterday, all of the things that we add in the Spark AR Studio are added in a very well-defined manner and not randomly. So you can see the texture has come under the assets panel, and the rectangle is inside the canvas. Okay, so let's just click on the rectangle, and as I told you yesterday also, the rectangle is a 2D object, so we can move its alignment right and left by just simply the cursor or the touchpad of the laptop. But today we'll not do that. Since we are doing something related to segmentation, we'll go to the inspector panel, and you can see in the width and height section, we'll just click on it and fill width, and same with the height. Okay, so you can see the screen has this rectangle box has completely covered our screen, and we don't want that. We'll be changing it. Okay, so now we'll go to materials in the inspector panel, and you can see a material has been added. So from the assets panel, we'll just change the name of the material, because we'll be adding one or two more materials, and to avoid unnecessary confusion, it's always good to change your material according to your use. So this is the material for background, so I'll just rename it as background material. Okay, so now we'll go to inspector panel, and you can see on the topmost corner there's an option that says shader types. Just click on that, change it from standard to flat, and you can see the rectangle that we added now is white, but we are not going to keep it white. We'll add something to the background. So we'll again go to the textures in inspector panel, and we'll choose a file from our computer or anywhere else. So I had already downloaded the background that I want, so I'll just add it. Okay, so you can see this is the background that I've added it. You can choose background according to yourself. Just download it from whatever source you want. And then, so now we'll go to canvas, because you can see the background has appeared, but the person's face has disappeared. So this is what I was talking about, the segmentation process. Now we have to separate the user's face from the background so that the background remains intact and the person's face comes in front of us. So we'll go to canvas. We'll add object here and we'll add another rectangle. Okay, so another rectangle has been added to it, and we'll rename this rectangle as the user, because we have one more rectangle for the background, and we can rename this as well to background. Okay, so now it will be clear. All right. Okay. We'll just delete this one right here. Okay. So we'll again click on canvas and add object, the rectangle. Now just rename it as user rectangle. All right. Okay. So now we'll go to material in the inspector panel, because now we'll change the material of the user as we have changed for the background. So we'll create new material, and the new material that we have created comes under the assets panel, and we'll rename it as user material. Okay. So now we'll again head to the inspector panel and we'll select user rectangle here. We'll again click on fill width and fill height. Okay, so now you can see the other rectangle that we've added. The user rectangle has completely taken over the screen. So we'll work with this now. We'll go to user material in the assets panel and head to shader type and change it to flat. Okay, so there are a few more steps that we'll have to do. Now we'll click on textures and we'll click on person segmentation, and we'll also click on camera texture. Okay, so now you can see that for a moment the background did appear and the person's face was a little blurred. So what we'll do is we'll just click on alpha, and in this section, the texture below alpha, we'll select person segmentation. Okay, now you can see our background has changed and the user's face has appeared. So this is what we wanted, to keep the user's face intact and change the background. So it is a little time-taking process, and once you start using this, you'll get hands on it. It's not something very tough, but you definitely need practice for it. So this is how you can change the background and add any background of your choice. So the first task for today has been done. Now we'll move on to another thing. And for that, I'll just open a new project, because we can't just keep on working in one. You guys might get confused. We've added a lot of materials and textures in that one. Okay. So now the second thing that we'll be doing today is adding a 3D object. You might remember that we did add a 3D object yesterday also, but it was not aligned with our real-time face stimulation. So today we'll be adding something on this person's face, and we'll try to align it with this person, and as the person's face moves, our 3D object will also move. So that's the aim today. So let's just get started. I'll just zoom in the screen and just move it like this so that you guys have a better view. All right, so first of all, let's select what objects do we want to add. So I'll search the AR library for it, because we have a bunch of cool 3D as well as 2D objects there. So I want to add a hat this time. So let's just type in hat. Okay, we can see we have quite a lot of hats to choose from. Okay, let's select this one. It looks colorful. So this effect, this 3D object that I'm adding is not particularly aligned with the theme of our initiative, that is celebrating vaccination and frontline workers. I'm just showing it to you guys in a simple way, but what you will submit, it will be on the themes of that. I'm just showing it with any object, so that you guys don't get confused if I start using more complex things. So it will just take some time to download, and just click on done. And in a few moments, you'll see that the hat has been added in the assets panel. Just wait for a few moments. So depending upon the size of the 3D object that you are adding, the time varies. So if you're adding a very small object, it will be added quickly. If you're adding a heavier object like this, which has a lot of elements and colors, it will take a little more time, like it is taking here, 1 or 2 minutes. I'll just click again. And let's just wait for done. Okay, so we can see that it has been added, but we wanted it here and not here, so we'll just add it here once again, and it is just creating confusion. I'll just close this tab. Okay, and we'll have to add the object again. Just click on import free, download, and then when this downloading option becomes blue to done, that's when you have to click it, and after a few moments it will appear in the assets panel. Just a few more minutes. Okay, you can see the asset. The name of the asset here was witch hat, so it has been added here. Okay, but we can't see it anywhere in our screen. So where is it? Okay, so what we are trying to do is we are trying to add the hat on the person's head and align it with his facial movement. So for that, we need to add a face tracker, a face mesh, and then set its position. So we'll head to the scene panel. From here, we'll click on add, and then on scene understanding, and we'll add a face tracker. Okay, so face tracker has been added to our panel, and as the name suggests, the face tracker, it manages all the AR, all the 3D or 2D objects that we add to a person's face, and basically tracks its activity. So how we want our object to behave once we've added it to the panel is all what face tracker controls. So we'll just click on the hat and we'll drag it to the face tracker. Okay, just a second. Okay, so we'll drag it and we'll place it right on the face tracker. So you can see the hat has appeared, but it is very large, and we want to make it a little aligned with our face. So what we can do is we have two options to control and adjust the size of the hat or any object that we add. First is that we click on which hat and we try to use these axes and shrink it a little bit, but that process is a little complicated when we are using the laptop and we don't have a mouse. So we'll head to the inspector panel, and you can see we have options here like position, scale. So we'll use the scale option, and we can see that the hat is already scaled at 1, 1, and 1 on all the three axes, and it is very big. So we'll reduce it to a size of say 0.2 on all the three axes. So sometimes it might happen that you are trying to align the 3D object that you've added and you get a little confused. Alignment gets out of your hand. So for that, just position all of these, position, scale, rotation, everything to 0. So the object will be placed at the dead center of the screen, and you can start aligning again. Okay, so our object has been placed, and it is still, it is just hovering around our face and not particularly aligned with the head of the person. And we'll align it properly and try to mask the hat at a fixed position. Okay, so for that, we'll head to the add option in the scene panel. Just click on add, and we'll add a 3D object, a face mesh. Okay, so you can see a face mesh has been added on our element, and now in the preview panel, we have a better view of how the hat will look on the person or when we try to use the effect ourselves. So the hat is looking fine, but it is still not the way that we want it. So we use the face mesh option to align it properly with our head. So sometimes it might happen that the face mesh you add has been added somewhere else. So what you need to do in that case is just drag the face mesh to the face tracker. But that usually doesn't happen. But sometimes, depending upon the version of the Spark AR Studio that you are using, it might happen. So don't get confused with that. Just drag the face mesh to face tracker, because the chain that we are forming is face mesh under face tracker and not the opposite. So we'll just click on face tracker in the scene panel, and here in the inspector panel we'll click on texture extraction. All right, so it has created a new texture for our face mesh, and we'll just rename it. Okay, I think face tracker texture is fine, so we'll leave it like this because it has face tracker mentioned in it and not material 1 or tracker 1. Okay, so now we will head to the add in the scene panel and click on add. We'll add a new material because, as I told you yesterday also, the material is basically the cover of all the things that you add, whether a 2D object, a 3D object, or a face mesh. It's basically a cover, and any changes that you want to make to your object will be done by adding material only. You can't just simply click on it and change its color, font, anything like that. So we'll name this material as face material because we don't want to create unnecessary confusion. Okay, face material. And now we'll select this face material and we'll go to the textures in inspector panel. So you can see a lot of options have appeared in this inspector panel, but for our use, we'll just click on texture and we'll click on face texture. So you'll see that nothing has changed. So we'll head again to the face mesh in the scene. Click on the materials in the inspector panel. So the alignment or the system which works is, if you want to change something on the face mesh, click on face mesh, then head to the inspector, change anything that you want. If you want to change something in face material or in textures, click on textures and then move to inspector panel. So we have selected face mesh from the scene panel. Now we'll move to inspector panel. In the inspector panel, we'll click material and we'll click face material. So now you can see the material has gone, but it has left a very glossy effect on our face mesh, and we want to change that. We don't want to keep it like this. It's fine, but it's not looking very good, and we'll complete the process till the end. Okay, so to remove this glossy effect, we'll click on face material in the assets panel because that was the material that we were working on. And like I said, select the material that you want to work on, move on to the inspector panel, and you'll see shader type. Just change the shader type to flat. Okay, now you can see the glossy effect has gone and our head is placed at the person's forehead, and it is also following the movement of our real-time face stimulation, but we can see it is not very well aligned. So what we can do is we can use the 3 axes that we were given here. We'll just click on which hat and you can see the 3 axes have appeared. Okay, so I think the hat is too forward, so I'll try to push it a little backward. For that, as I told you, we have 2 options. One is that we can use the 3 axes, the X, Y, and Z axes that are given here. And the other option that we have to set the alignment of the hat is by manually typing in the position, scale, and rotation. So we don't usually get to set the rotation and everything because it is a very complex process. Setting scale in the inspector panel is quite easy, but when you start manually changing everything, it gets a little complicated. So rather than that, we'll just use these 3 axes and start aligning it. So I'll just rotate it by pressing the control on my keyboard, and you can see we need to adjust the alignment, but the real-time face stimulation is moving. So for setting it, we'll just pause the video for a while. Okay, so now we have a clear view of how our hat is looking here, and we can use these axes to change it. Okay, so as you all might be aware, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. We can take the hat up or down using this, and just a little lower, and this is the x-axis. We can move it left and right. So I think the left and right adjustment here is fine. We need to move the hat a little backward. For that, we have the z-axis. We'll just click on the z-axis and push it, and just click on the left axis and push it a little backward. All right, and now let's see how the hat has set. Okay, so now the hat is looking fine. We'll just see. Yeah, the hat is now looking fine. If you want to change the size a little bit smaller, we'll just make it 1.8. Okay. Okay, so this is how you can add a 3D object and align it with your face by adding a face mesh and a face tracker. So it is very important to add a face mesh and a tracker, because that is the one which will track the activity of the object that you have added. Otherwise, that if you just start adding objects and try to physically, with the help of a laptop or inspector panel, try to align it, it won't happen unless and until you add the tracker. So okay, so we've added a 3D object, but as someone also mentioned in the chat in the beginning, can we add animations to it? So now the third thing is we'll try adding patch editors, which is basically for animation only. So you might have seen those filter where you tap on the screen and the object that you added disappears, or it goes above the head, and when you tap again, the object comes back to its place. So we'll try doing something like that today. So for that, what we need to do is we need to work with the patch editors. So how and what is patch editor? I'll just tell you. Let me just show you from where the patch editor can be seen. Just click on view here and show and hide patch editors. Okay, so we can see this is the area where all our patch editors will be displayed. So what is a patch editor? You can think of a patch editor as a building block of a building, and they are very small editors and very small particles that we add to our AR effect. But when we combine them together, they give us the kind of animation that we want. For example, one patch will be responsible for adding touch effect to our screen. The other patch will be required to remove the hat from the person's head when we tap. So when we work with patch editors, it is basically a cause and effect relationship. One patch will be the cause, the other will give out the effect. So you can see there's nothing in the patch editors because we have not added any till now. So we'll just right click on the patch editor, and you can see a lot of things have appeared. So what I plan to do is I plan to add a tap on my screen, so that when I tap the screen, the hat disappears, and when I tap again on the screen, the hat reappears. So let's see how we can do that. And you can do a bunch of things similarly. You can add a switch, a blink, anything like that. But since it's a beginner level workshop, we'll start with the tap effect, which is quite easy. Just concentrate here. Okay, so we'll just find a touch effect here. Just touch. Okay. Okay, the tap effect. Okay, the tap. Okay. So we want the screen tap and not the object tap. We'll just click on screen tap and add patch. Okay, so you can see a very small box have been added here, but nothing has changed. There's no tap added on the screen. Nothing has happened till now. So the effect that happens is when you align all the patch editors that you have added. So this process is a little time taking, but don't get confused. You'll get the hang of it once you start using it. We are starting the patch editor thing from very basic level so you'll understand it. So a small patch has appeared here which is screen tap and enabled with a tick box here. So this is the cause which I was talking about. The screen tap will be the cause and the effect will be the hat has gone. So for that we'll need to add an effect patch as well. So we'll again double click on the patch editor, or we'll just right click on the patch editor screen and we'll search for switch. Okay, switch, and a switch patch has been added on our screen. So you can see both the patch has been added, but they're not connected to each other yet. So we'll try to connect them to each other. And what we want to do is I told you we want to add a touch, but for touch, what are we adding the touch for? For the which hat? So we need to add a patch for the hat as well. So we'll click on hat from here, and in the inspector panel we can see that there's an option visible and the checkbox near it has been ticked. So we'll click on this yellow button just side by side the visible option. We'll just click on it and you can see a patch for the hat has also been added, but there has no connection been made with all these three patches till now. So now we'll make a connection between them so that it gives us the desired effect that we want. So for that we'll just click on screen tap and we will simply drag it to flip. Okay, so you can see a blue line chain type thing has connected the screen tap patch editor and the flip patch editor. Similarly, now we've added the cause and we have connected it to the effect. But on what object will the patch editor work? It is the hat. So we need to connect these two to the hat patch editor now. So we'll just see an option here which says on/off. So we'll just drag this and we'll connect it to the visible. Okay, so now you can see the hat has gone and we have created a chain of patch editors. So we'll just tap again and the hat comes again. So this is how we've added the animation to it. Just tap on the screen, the hat reappears, just tap back, the hat has gone now. So similarly, this is a very basic patch editor that we have added. So you can add any other patch editor that you want to add. It can be a screen, it can be a blink, anything like that. So this was all I wanted to talk today. So we talked about how to remove and how to change background by segmentation process, how to align a 3D object with our face, and how to add patch editors. So this was all I wanted to talk about. So I'll just stop sharing my screen and Anuj and I will start taking questions if you have any. Anuj?
Yes, am I audible?
Okay. Yes, you are. So we are done with our session and I think we can start taking some questions now.
Yes, so there was a question that uh, where we can view this again. You can just click on the link. The video will be available post the session, so it will be available on YouTube. And how do I get to know? You will receive a notification after your effect has been accepted by Facebook and Spark Air Labs. And on Instagram, there would be a tab next to your, where we see the tagged photos and we see the reels and IGTV. So you will have an effect option there, so you can see there. And you have to submit the dashboard filter screenshot, not the filter screenshot, the dashboard screenshot.
Okay,
This
so
isn't
there
a
was a question
contest. Yeah, Tanisha, go
Yes,
ahead.
Anuj. Okay, so I was taking up a question that I can't find published button when they are redirected to Spark AR Hub. So if you can't see the published button, you'll see a submit button on the right side. So publish and submit, it's the same thing. So you can click on the submit button and submit it. And there was one more question: is a demo video compulsory for submitting our effect? No, actually the demo video is optional. If you want to, you can add it, but if you don't want to, you just can simply skip that part and submit it.
And there's a question. This isn't a contest, but it's an upskilling initiative. So you will get a contribution certificate, not the winner or the participation certificate. And there isn't any ranking for this.
Okay, can I add media along with slider, not the script one? Yes, when we add objects, I added a 3D object. You could have seen there was an option to add audio as well. So you can select audio and media, whatever you want to add. You can select it from your computer or from the AR library. Make sure that the extension that you are using, some extensions are not allowed in the Spark AR, so you might have to convert it to some other extension that is allowed, but you can definitely add any media that you want to add. Okay, where can I find guidelines for accepting this submission?
You can have a look at the Spark AR forum. There are guidelines that on what basis they are expecting and accepting the AR filters. And as for the guidelines and steps for this initiative, it's on the website on your dashboard along with the presentation.
Yes. Okay, so do we have any other questions? Okay, so I think that is it. These were the questions that were asked. If you have any other question, just put it in the chat, we'll answer it.
You don't need any high specification configuration for Spark AR. It can work on any Windows, but yes, you would need a graphic card and at least 4 GB RAM, so you can have a smooth execution and experience. If you have less than that, then it might cause you some issues.
All right.
Yes, if you have a mail from FB, you can submit that screenshot as well that your filter has been accepted. Just make sure the date and time are mentioned in the screenshot.
Okay.
Krutika,
There's a question.
that's
We have to.
Yeah, take on.
Yeah. So we have to submit the filter on Facebook and Instagram both, or just so I taught you yesterday how to publish it. There was an option to select a particular platform. You can select both, or you can select either Facebook or Instagram, but make sure that any of the account that you are using is linked to it. That is, you have logged in from the same device, and then you can publish it. Okay, so
I guess we have taken all the
looks like
questions, right?
Yeah. Yes, I think we've answered all the questions that were asked. Okay, so there are no more questions incoming. So I would like to thank you all from Incubate In, and thank you all for joining us for the 2-day workshop and staying till the end. I hope that you all can now submit at least not a very well defined but a basic filter, and make sure that you submit it before 28th because it takes 1 or 2 days to get accepted as well. So to avoid any last minute rush, make sure that you submit it. You still have 11-12 days, you can submit it, and make sure that it gets accepted. Your effect is following all the community guidelines, and it will be done after you have submitted your effect and it is accepted. You don't need to worry about your t-shirts and certificate. We'll look into it and you will definitely receive one.